Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 2013 film Curse of Chucky. And yes, we're almost done with this box set, but after that, I'll be covering the remake and separately both seasons of the very good show. So, I've heard a lot of people say that they're not a big fan of Curse of Chucky. Honestly, I'm pretty good with it. I mean, is it the most phenomenal? Is it the best film in the franchise? By no means, not even close. But is it a bad film? No. There are some things I don't like about it, but there are some things I really do like about it. And I'm going to get into those in addition to analyzing in this one. Written and directed by Don Mancini, who also directed Seed of Chucky, Cult of Chucky, and the 2 episodes of the show. Nika, the character of Nika in this, is played by Fiona Dourif. Yes, that's the daughter of Brad Dourif, which I think is really cool. She's a phenomenal actress. If you haven't seen her in anything else, one of the things I think you should definitely see her in is Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. Very good show. Also has Elijah Wood in it, and her character is something else. And like, her performance is out of this world in that. Although now that, like, whenever I see her, I just see that character for the most part. It's very interesting. But anyway, she's a great actress. I like her in this film. Brad Dourif recorded all of his lines in less than a day, and the film was shot in 30 days. So a relatively quick one. You can tell it has like a cheaper budget feel to it. So there are some instances where you think they kind of went a little brief on some things, maybe some of the kills and everything, just because money was a little bit low. It was a little tight on the budget. Purportedly Brad Dourif's favorite of the Chucky films, followed by Bride of Chucky. This one, his favorite. Very interesting. I'm sure you wouldn't find many fans who call this one their favorite, but I'm sure they're out there. But very interesting. Don Mancini wanted to update the Chucky look to be more modern and human-like for this one. I mean, sure, but I don't like the look of it. I'm sure a lot of people didn't really like the look of the remake of Chucky the doll. He looks very chubby, like oddly chubby, and that just kind of like throws me off from like, it's Chucky, you know, like you kind of want it to stick with the way Chucky looked. So that was one of the missteps I didn't really like. I don't think that design is great. Although when they eventually kind of like, I think it's the character Barb, pull away the stuff that was on the face to make him look like shiny and new, and they reveal like all the stitches and everything, that's cool. Like I love that moment. And then he looks better. He looks a lot better. That helps out a lot, but he still just looks like weirdly chubby. The film has a weird overexposed look when there's natural lighting involved. Now, that said, there isn't natural lighting much in this film. It is like the colors are kind of leached a little bit within the film to keep it relatively drab. Not extremely, but in the beginning, like, this really weird overexposed look to it when Nika is talking to the delivery guy who was hitting on her, but her mom says he was just being nice, which is a whole other thing I'm going to talk about in a second. But the light shining in, like, it's all messed up. It looks terrible. So I don't understand why they kept that in there, why they did it that way. It's a really weird thing. You can immediately tell that Nika's mother is mentally abusive when she tells Nika that the delivery guy was just flirting with her to be nice. Yeah. Now, you end up understanding to a very great degree by the end of the film why her mother is the way she is. And it does make a lot of sense, and you do feel more sympathy for her. But initially in the film, she's kind of cast a little bit as kind of a villain, in a sense, because she's basically keeping Nika under lock and key. She's mentally abusing her by saying that, like, no one would actually be interested in her. Although by the end of the film, you would probably assume that she was just doing that because she just wants to keep her in the house, to keep her safe. She keeps kind of overblowing what her disability is, just like everyone else in her life, just kind of being like, well, you can't do anything. Everyone needs to do stuff for you. You're just a burden. And that will, keep someone from even trying. And that's one of the main themes within this film is kind of like the abusive nature of parents and kind of like the persona and the role that parents will place onto their kids. And whether or not they're going to accept that or not. But I'll talk more about that at the very end. It kind of feels a bit like Nika's mother is overly protective and puts down her abilities to keep her home as her best friend. Yeah, because you get the idea that her mother is a shut-in, that her mother doesn't have quite a shining personality. She probably doesn't have a whole lot of friends, if any. And she wants Nika there, so she has family, so she has someone, because obviously Barb isn't there. She's off, having a life. So she's trying to, like, glom onto Nika and just keep her there to be her friend. They make such a big deal of showing the elevator that you know it's going to come into play later. And it does, like, numerous times, because that's obviously the way that Nika gets from floor 1 to floor 2. So it is a big deal. But immediately when they show it in, like, this very grandiose, kind of imposing way, and you're like, oh, well, it's going to be important. The blood of Nika's mother spreading and then the pan back to reveal Chucky and the title. Super cool, super stylish moment. Really love that. And that points to something else about the film in general, which is it's shot extremely well. It's very stylish. I would venture to say it's the most stylishly shot film in the franchise. Although I haven't watched Cult yet at this point. I had watched it many years ago, but I haven't had a fresh watch of it, so I don't know if it kind of continues to that, but very stylish. Like, that's the thing I love the most, is like the cinematography and the directing in this, really excellent. That's one of the things that kind of boosts it up for me. Just being so visually pleasing can go a long way with a film, for me at least, and that's definitely a play with Curse of Chucky. You can tell Nika is really over it with people thinking she's helpless when her sister and the priest show up to pity her. She even makes some sort of comment about, like, not needing to be there to pity her because she's kind of, like, had too much of that in her life. But there they are, and they nail it home. They nail it home very early that that's kind of like what her life is a lot of people just placing inability on her and pitying her, and she hates it. Like, she's totally over it. She hasn't been able to live a real life because of it. Quite a good jump scare when Chucky suddenly reaches for Alex in the bathroom, the little girl. They had a nice kind of little build up there with the score, and then you don't think he's necessarily going to move, but then when his hand kind of shoots out, good jump scare. They got me. I think they got me on one other jump scare, which I'll talk about when it comes to that point in the movie. I do like the scene of Nika aggressively chopping tomatoes, and then they shoot it like Chucky is kind of like ogling the knife. Like, they show his face like he's kind of like, I mean, it's his normal face, but like you get the idea with the way that they're shooting it, that he's just like almost drooling looking at this knife that she's aggressively chopping tomatoes with, which is just like getting him excited to kill. So I love the way they did that. Again, cinematography, directing, very good. They really slow play the payoff from that rat poison. It does build good tension, but I also feel like it goes a little bit too long, in my opinion. Oh, and I should note that I watched the unrated version of the film. I did not watch the rated version because both versions you can choose on the disc in here, and why would you watch the rated version? I'm just saying. So anyway, yeah, the rat poison. The rat poison was effective. It was cool. I like that they kind of like slow played it, because you don't know like who's getting it, who's going to die, who's actually eating the rat poison. And that's cool. That's a great concept. They pulled it off really well. I just think that it goes on a little too long. You just kind of hit that mark where you're just like, oh, okay, we're still doing this. We probably should have found out by now. Like, there should have been a payoff sooner with it. But it's good for the most part. The priest's head rolling off is a pretty great scene. And that's one of the things is I really liked some of the kills in this. Some of the kills I actually hated, and I'll talk about those when I come up to them. But him in the car accident, at first I was like, oh my gosh, we're not actually seeing the car accident. Like, it's the aftermath. Like, that screams low budget to me. But they laid things out well enough. It was effective enough. And then it was a great payoff because, the stuff's like, things have gone into his throat at that point from the crash, and then they're like, okay, lift this off of him. And then once they do, it's all that spurting blood, and then his head just rolls backwards. Great, awesome. Wasn't expecting it. Super cool. I thought he would just bleed out there. I didn't expect the head rolling off, so love that. Interesting twist with the relationship between Barb and Jill. You would have assumed it would have been Ian and Jill. So another moment in this Chucky franchise of kind of switching things up for people, making people think differently in a sense. Because most people, I mean, it is just this old trope where it's like, oh, the husband is trying to have a sexual relationship with the nanny, but here it's the wife. So interesting. Another solid jump scare is when the power pops back on and Nika's in the elevator, and then Chucky's face lights up as he's laughing. Another good jump scare. So I think that was it for me. 2 good jump scares. That's pretty good because jump scares usually don't really get me. So that's when you know they're effectively done. I love this quote when Alice says it. It's something that Chucky said to her. He said life's a bitch and then you die bleeding like a stuck pig. I laughed at that. I love that line. I think it's hilarious. You know, said by someone else, it doesn't have the impact, but said by a little kid, hilarious. And that kid did a great job. Good job. Everyone knows things are about to escalate as soon as you hear that classic Chucky laugh. Once the laugh happens, it's like the signal for everyone that things are about to escalate. Things are about to start going a lot faster in the film. Here comes more death. Here comes more tension. Here comes more dread. All that good stuff. So it's always nice in a Chucky film when you hear that laugh for the first time because you're like, let's go. Plus, you just, it makes you giddy because it's a great character, to be honest. Jill's death, I did not like. Her, getting fried because her computer was plugged into the floor. First of all, I'm not quite sure you would be electrocuted in that instance when Chucky knocks over the bucket of water. But the main thing, the CGI didn't look good when she's frying and it's the steam coming off or the smoke coming off of her because she's frying. It looked bad. It was bad CGI. Plus, it was just kind of lame. They did after the head rolling off of the priest. For them to go that low key was just. It was kind of couldn't we have kept it up here at this level? Please just keep it there. The confusion between Nika and Barb about what's inside Chucky, I actually thought was kind of funny when Nika has already done her research and she believes that the soul of Charles Lee Ray is inside of Chucky accurately. Yet Barb, from a more realistic standpoint, believes that there's a nanny cam inside of Chucky and that's it. There is a nanny cam inside of Chucky, which I'm going to bring that up in a bit. One of the big questions I have on that. But, yeah, it's just that exchange is kind of funny because, they think they're talking about the same thing, but they're not talking about the same thing, and only the audience knows that. And it was kind of funny. I kind of enjoyed it. Not a big moment in the film, though. I do think the sequence with Barb in the attic with Chucky and Nika trying to get to her goes on too long. Just prolonging the payoff for the rat poison scene, this scene, same thing. They let it go on way too long. At some point, you hit this wall of, okay, the tension's already built. You're not really building anymore. In fact, that tension's starting to go down because you're just doing the same thing over and over again. So that was one of my big issues. That really needed to be cut back a bit. Good scene, that's fine. It's just, it goes on way too long. I do like that they return to Chucky's stitched face look eventually. Like I already said, looks great. Makes him look better than this new design. Real quick, pause for horror hydration. Thank you. Barb's eye getting stabbed. That is some nice gore. Now that's a return to the really good kill, much like the priest's head rolling off. You see the knife go into her eye socket. Plenty of blood. It's great. I mean, it's kind of quick, so you're not focusing on it too much. But the amount of blood that you see and how it's shot makes you cringe. It is painful to watch, and it's a great payoff for that death. So I'm glad that after Jill's death, that's how they did Barb's death. Nika trying to escape Chucky while in a wheelchair does increase the feeling of danger, which I think was kind of part of Nika's character actually having a disability. is her actually being in, it's harder for her to move anywhere. And then the whole elevator thing, like she can't just run down the stairs. She has to take her time, which is very much delayed if she's being chased, to, hit the button, get in, close it, all that jazz. Ian finds out about Chucky by watching the nanny cam footage, but wouldn't Chucky know that was put inside of him and have taken it out? That, I think, is a plot hole within the film. I believe that so first of all, Chucky's alive. I don't think he would have allowed Ian to put the nanny cam in him in the first place. I think Chucky would have killed him at that point. The other thing is, even if he let him do it, I think he would take it out. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't make sense that it was in there the whole time. It's very odd to me. Unless there's this idea that, like, Chucky actually was sleeping or something, which I don't think that's really a thing. Sorry, I need to have a little extra water. Yeah, so that was one of the plot hole issues, one of the things that really kind of bothered me. Ian's lower jaw being hacked off is a really great gore gag. Again, after the priest's head falling off, Barb being stabbed in the eye, then Ian getting his lower jaw just hacked off by that hatchet from Chucky. That's a great scene. That was my favorite kill in the film, especially because in the unrated version, at least, they focus on it. They focus on the practical effects. It looks great. It's very effective. It's very brutal. It's very gory. Love it. Which, by the way, the kills overall were way more intense and gory in this film than they had been in, any other Chucky film. And I like that about it. That's one of the other things I enjoy about the film. Chucky isn't done after having his head lopped off, because that's what the franchise has taught us. At this point, you just know that the first time Chucky goes down, he's not done. He's never done the first time. So I just, sometimes I feel like it's good to kind of switch it up in a franchise and be like, okay, he got taken down once and that was actually it. And you can have something after that, story-wise, but, the problem is when you keep having it they never go down the first time, then people just expect it, there's not much, surprise to him popping back up. The reveal that Charles Lee Ray was a family friend is kind of whatever, but it is okay when they tie it back to the beginning of the first film. I thought that was kind of cool. Also, I really like in the flashback scene that it's shot in black and white, but all those sunflowers are actually colored, or just the yellow petals of the sunflowers are colored. That was really interesting. Overall, I don't really think we needed the whole flashback sequence or anything. It didn't really do a whole lot. I think just he could have kind of said what went on, and then you could show the footage from the first film. That would have been easier, in my opinion, and would have taken less time, because it does become belabored too much. Another one of my issues with the film. Of course, the police show up, and it looks like Nika is a murderer. That always happens in these Chucky films, because people don't assume that there's an actual killer doll, because that's not very realistic. So you can see where it's kind of like this oh crap moment where the police show up, and you're like, oh, maybe she's saved. Oh, wait, never mind. They don't believe in killer dolls. So she's going to jail. And yeah, so they have that whole court sequence. And then she looks even more unhinged and like a potential deranged killer, because she's yelling at Chucky in the courtroom. I guess she just couldn't help herself. The ending with the officer getting the doll for Tiffany and then having his throat slit is exactly like Bride of Chucky, which I think is kind of a cool thing that they did, especially for people who have seen Bride of Chucky. I guess they're kind of assuming that people had, because it's... Okay, this is the thing. I need to get this right. Because it's Tiffany as Jennifer Tilly doing exactly what Tiffany as Tiffany did in Bride of Chucky. But since then, in Seed of Chucky, she took over the body of Jennifer Tilly. So now she's Jennifer Tilly, even though she looks exactly like how Tiffany did. So it's kind of like this wink and nod kind of funny thing, but it's also cool because it just ties it directly back and just mirrors Bride of Chucky, which... a lot of people love that film. I don't think the last portion with Chucky and Alice was actually needed to show that, like, Chucky's still out there, because we just know that. Like, I think just Nika being taken away probably would have been enough, or maybe just have her taken away and then you just, like, see Chucky laughing. You don't need him interacting with Alex so much anymore. Just my opinion. All right, and the last few things for this one, I really do dig the score for this film. That said, there are moments where they have it screaming at you. They pump the volume up way too much, and that's something that really bothers me with films, like use well-composed music in a more restrained way. So that would have helped out, because they don't with this. But the composition, the score, very good. Very good. Really liked it. Excuse me. Again, the smooth camera work and interesting shot selection gives the film a very stylish look that matches the old house, in my opinion, because the house looks kind of nice and old and kind of like an old money type thing. And I think that stylish kind of camera work and movement kind of mirrors the feel of the house and kind of enhances it. And the last thing, this film speaks to how influential parents are in shaping relationships and perceptions having to do with their kids, and how that can become a prison of sorts for kids. And the interesting thing is, in the beginning of the film, Nika is basically living in a prison, because she's pretty much not allowed to leave the house because her mother's keeping her in prison, in essence, which is what Charles Lee Ray had done to her mother. Then, at the end of the film, she's imprisoned again, in a different way, though. Like, she is such a unfortunate character. Like, there are a lot of unfortunate characters in Chucky, but how downtrodden she becomes over the course of the franchise, it's brutal. Like, it's brutal, and you really do feel for her, and it's rough. And at some point, not to, like, it's not spoiling anything, but at some point during, like, the show, you're just kind of like, oh man, like, could we take it back a little bit on this one? But anyway, that's my review for Curse of Chucky. I enjoyed it enough. So out of 5 stars with half stars in play, 3-star rating of Curse of Chucky. I still like it more than the third Child's Play film. So pretty solid. Interested to see what Cult will be like now that I'm going to rewatch it after many years. So yeah, let me hear your opinions on the film if you want to talk a little bit deeper about it, or if you just want to say you like it, hate it, give me like a sentence or two. That's cool. Do me a favor, hit subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I really appreciate that. Also hit the notification bell button. I appreciate that as well, especially if you just watch my videos as they come out, because it helps them gain traction on YouTube. But regardless, thanks for being with me for this franchise. Thanks for checking out this video. And until next time, keep it brutal.